The Jedi didn't start the war. They're trying to stop it.
Sure they are.
Clone Wars Episode 5 answers the question, what did Ashoka Tano do after leaving the Jedi Order? And the answer is, she kinda rode around looking for a lift off the planet. I'm very excited to see how this wandering Ronin becomes the fulcrum of the rebellion, and this episode is our first step on this journey. The episode begins with Ahsoka riding away from the Galactic City through an industrial area called the Works. This is where Dooku met with Sidious at the end of Attack of the Clones. But most of the episode takes place in the lower levels, the seedy area where Anakin and Obi-Wan chase Zam Wesell. When the entire planet's covered in skyscrapers, you don't get much light at the bottom, so that's where the poor, the outcasts, and the criminals all live. But this episode takes place even further down, in an area that's been dug into the planet's surface. They even mention,
You happened to crash onto one of the best repair shops on 1313.
You might remember 1313 was the working title of a cancelled Star Wars video game about Boba Fett navigating the planet's seedy underbelly. This episode uses design elements from that game and from the demo footage of Star Wars Underworld. That's the cancelled TV show about the lower levels. We actually did a whole video about that footage. Check it out if you have time. As Ahsoka is driving, the musical score is Luke Skywalker's theme. Ahsoka's bike is modeled very closely after a motorcycle. Note the body, the handlebars, and the headlight. Very different from the speeder bikes or swoop bikes that we've seen in Star Wars before. But the sound effects are the same. During her breakdown, the radar dish on this speeder gets torn off, which seems to always be happening to ships in Star Wars. When she falls, the score is very reminiscent of a similar speeder chase in Attack of the Clones. Lots of different Star Wars species pop up in this episode, including Rodians, a Gotal, an Ithorian, Bith, a couple Twi'leks, and this guy is an Aqualish, like Ponda Baba from New Hope.
He doesn't like you.
In fact, most of the aliens in this episode appeared in the Mos Eisley Cantina, dressed exactly like their original action figures. Trace shows her a Nebula-class freighter. These ships are usually used for cargo, however, light freighters can also hold their own in battle. This one looks similar to the VCX-100 light freighter, which was in Star Wars Rebels, and had a cameo in Rise of Skywalker. My favorite part of this episode isn't the action scenes, it's the conversation Trace has with Ahsoka about the Jedi.
I'm sure you have your problems up there with the Jedi running around, starting wars, policing everything.
This is awesome. It fills in a lot of gaps. I always thought it was weird that the Jedi defended the Republic for 1,000 generations, then they get wiped out, and just 20 years later, people think the Force is a myth.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
I mean, why were people so quick to believe Palpatine when he said the Jedi turned on the Republic? This gives us so many answers. 1, people felt left behind by the Jedi.
They've forgotten all about us.
2, they blamed the Jedi for starting the war.
I guess they're not what I thought they'd be.
And 3, the war weakened their faith in their government, making room for a new government to arise. This is pretty great world building in just a few sentences. The Ahsoka fistfight was also pretty cool, the way she used the Force to stop a punch. And then the score is a stripped down version of the Star Wars theme because she's fighting without any of her lightsabers. She says,
Where did you learn to fight like that?
My older brother taught me.
and this was sweet and reminded me of Obi-Wan and Anakin's friendship.
You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!
And it makes Anakin's eventual betrayal that much more tragic. I hope we get to explore more of her feelings about leaving the Order in the next few episodes. In fact, in one of the unfinished animatics of Clone Wars, Anakin refused to open up about her leaving.
She's gone.
Anakin, do you want to talk about it?
What's there to talk about?
You gotta open up with your feelings, Anakin. If you don't, they bottle up and they manifest in really destructive ways.
What are we going to do?
Trace finds her sister Rafa in a space laundromat stealing clothes. Now this, along with her fur coat, reminded me a lot of Marla from Fight Club. I mean, can this be a coincidence? It seems like a direct reference. Also, this hat looks a lot like the helmets the rebel soldiers wore on Hoth. We always like to go through and interpret the Arabesh letters in these episodes. In the laundry, the sign on the door says 1010, 24 hours open. and this one says laundrette. And inside, the sign says Calrissian soap. So maybe Lando's family was in the soap game before he broke bad and went into smuggling. Trace and Ahsoka are rebuilding binary load lifters, which C-3PO has some experience with.
Sir, my first job was programming binary load lifters.
The episode's troubles begin when Trace doesn't install a restraining bolt on one of the droids. We first saw these little cylinders in A New Hope. They're basically used to keep the droids behaving within a certain set of parameters, which is a little messed up if you think about it too hard. The lower levels are also lousy with Lothcats, the felines that first appeared in Star Wars Rebels but have recently cameoed in The Mandalorian. And if you like the original Star Wars, then this droid should look familiar to you. That's your mom. I'm just kidding, it's an Arey assistant droid that we saw in the Jawa Sandcrawler. We have fun, don't we? And there's also this space taxi, which I'm not really a fan of. Star Wars doesn't work for me when it too specifically mirrors modern day technology. So, sports bars and diners? No. Cantinas and restaurants? Yes. Showing a taxi with a checkered door takes me out of the moment and tells me this was created on Earth and not a galaxy far, far away. What do you think? What part of Star Wars looks the least Star Wars to you? Well, that's all the Easter eggs we found. If you found any, let me know in the comments below. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Arey.